Okay, welcome everybody to the Stonecrest Housing Authority meeting for February 9th, 2022. The time is 4:06 p.m. Our first order of business is a roll call. When I call your name, please signify your presence by saying here. Vice Chairperson and Treasurer Edwina Clanton.
Here.
Secretary Marie Colson. Oh, Marie, you're on mute.
I can hear you now.
Can you just need you to signify your presence by saying here. Well, we'll note that Marie is here. Commissioner Forrest Elliott.
Here.
Commissioner Dennis Day is not here unless I'm missing him. Is that him joining? That's him joining.
There he is.
There he is. We'll wait just 1 second for Commissioner Day to come online. Here we go. Commissioner Day, if you could take your microphone off mute and signify your presence by saying here.
Here. I always forget to mute.
And the chairman is here, so we have a quorum. The next order of business is to approve the agenda. Everybody has a copy of the agenda. I will bring it up on the screen.
And I'll make the motion to approve the agenda for today.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
The agenda has been properly moved, and so we can move on. And we're very honored today. We have a special guest. Commissioner Lorraine Cochran Johnson has served the DeKalb County District 7 since 2019. The district covers over 380,000 constituents from Doraville to Tucker, Decatur, Lithonia, and Stonecrest, making it one of the largest districts in the state of Georgia. She has lived in the county for almost 2 decades. She attended Troy University, where she received a BS degree in political science and criminal justice, an MS in the administration of criminal justice, and received the MPA in public administration with a concentration in economic development and grant writing from Auburn University before attending John Marshall Law School. Commissioner Cochran Johnson strongly supports positive initiatives in economic development, education, public safety, and home ownership. She recently hosted an excellent town hall on the housing crisis in DeKalb County, and will share some of the highlights from that meeting with us today. It is with great pleasure and honor that I turn the floor over to Commissioner Lorraine Cochran Johnson.
Bill, thank you so much. I guess you may have been a part of that town hall that I sponsored not long ago. And Edwina, were you a part of it as well? You're on mute, and everyone can feel free to come off of mute, because when I have conversations, I do want active engagement at that time.
I'm pretty sure Marie Colson was on.
And I watched it afterwards. It was just awesome. In fact, I made some connections afterwards, so it was really good. Yes.
Well, thank you so much. And to all of my family from Stonecrest, I see Miss Janice Allen Jackson and so many that are working on behalf of the people of the great city of Stonecrest. And just know that I'm here and more than happy to help you guys at any time in any way needed. The reason I chose to host this town hall, I think I was the first in 2019 to mention the issue of gentrification. Because of course I am a very hands-on commissioner. If you write my office, I respond. If you call, I respond. So I handle the bulk of my day-to-day personally. And over the past several months, and I had noticed this even prior to COVID, but thereafter it just got out of control. I literally received calls each day or emails from people who were in need of housing assistance. And as I'm passing these people along, I began to notice the wait time for our DeKalb County housing list was growing out of control. So I want people to understand the condition we're in, because in many instances, I think people don't. And let me say formally that as it relates to government, government is not in the business of housing. The DeKalb County government is not in the business of real estate. We provide essential services, sanitation, roads, public safety, planning and sustainability. However, people look to us to assist in ways and often in areas where they have or lack of capacity. So that's what sort of brings us here today. And I always sort of begin with an acknowledgement of my team. I know my chief of staff, Dr. Davis, is online today. Many of you know my other Stonecrest resident, JP Phillips, best constituent liaison you could have.
Right.
And of course, Allison is the person that does all of this wonderful PowerPoint. She's also in the office. She's the director of First Impressions. She processes a lot of requests. As it stands currently, DeKalb County, as you know, has 5 general districts and 2 at large. And those are referred to as super districts. And I have super 7. So if you take DeKalb, that divide it down the middle, give me the eastern portion, and that's currently my territory. So I have everything from a little bit of Dunwoody, the southernmost tip of Dunwoody, down through portions of Doraville, Chamblee, Clarkston, Pine Lake, Stone Mountain, Stonecrest, and parts of Tucker, as well as unincorporated DeKalb County. So literally I have about 360,000 people that I'm accountable to, but I do consider myself a commissioner to all people. I'm not bound by lines, and nor will I be even if the new legislation changes it. So here you'll see some of my priorities. These are the major areas that I work on: economic development, job creation, entrepreneurship. Of course, infrastructure is very important, because independent of that, we aren't able to grow in some instances. Home ownership and affordable housing. And, you know, since the town hall, because, you know, I've had a few other opportunities to engage with other people that have a great deal of experience, I really think the feds got it wrong. For a period of time, initially when COVID struck, the housing market went dormant because people were afraid to view homes. I know that some of you that are a part of this conversation are actually in the real estate business. Things sort of came to a halt. Mm-hmm. During that time, there was no building. But during that time, what you began to see, and now we're dealing with the results of the inflation, you saw materials go up. Inflation now is at one of the highest points that it's been in modern day history. But because homes weren't selling, the feds decided to lower the interest rate. Now, for the average American consumer, that's always a good thing, because folk who understand money knows that often the interest rate you're charged can determine whether or not a home is affordable for you. So with the lower interest rate, people began to rush out to consume or purchase homes. And now, because for a year there was no building taking place, real estate inventory is at the lowest rate that it's been in, I believe, according to my research, over 30 years. Okay, so you now have a lack of inventory. You have a high demand. We still continue to have record low mortgage rates, of which people are struggling in many instances to use and can't find properties. The median household price, the median home price went in 2021 to $363,000 in the United States. If you live in DeKalb County and you go online, it used to be that $200,000 to $250,000 would buy you a decent home in a nice community. But what you find now is if that is your price range, often there is absolutely no inventory whatsoever. You cannot find a home in DeKalb County that is $250,000. And in Stonecrest, that goes slightly higher unless you're looking for a townhome. And, you know, as I sit here and I say this, we're at a critical point because whether you want to rent or purchase, there's a lack of inventory. And I want to be clear because I often take the opportunity to use myself as the example. Since the Lord anointed me and I became an elected official, I only work for my salary. So independent of anything that I'd done before I got here, independent of any other investments, my annual salary as a DeKalb County Commissioner is $66,000. With a $66,000 income, Ms. Clanton, as a general rule, I would only qualify for a home that's about $150,000 to $170,000 on a single income of $66,000. If that were the case, I am a part of the working poor. I plain and simply cannot afford a home. So this is a condition that we find many Americans in at this moment. Also, it's very important to point out that home building lots are up 11% in price, while the overall inventory of home building lots has decreased, only 24% out there. So now you're seeing a much higher cost for land. So we did talk already about supply chain issues. I even received a lot of calls about a D.R. Horton community that's across the street from my home. And in speaking with them, it was a slippery slope because they indicated we're no longer able to construct and use many of the materials that we discussed to keep the home at the price point, because what we're now experiencing is post-pandemic. So the materials have increased. So you find builders even making allowances and changing. Also, what you're dealing with is the millennials and baby boomers, which create a totally different scenario altogether. So when we look at current housing market, the market and where we are, some of these things we've sort of talked about, but the average home, 50% of homes sell within 7 days. Half of all homes sell in 1 week after hitting the market, and most homes, and when they define most, I believe they say about 70% of all homes sell within 17 days. But also what we're experiencing for anyone out there that's a renter, you're seeing as your rent or your lease renews, increases of several $100s. I've seen some individuals in Conyers, because I kind of have feelers, I speak with people everywhere, that increase from $250 to $300. I actually have family here in DeKalb County, and we had encouraged her for years because I have programs for anyone that's listening, and we'll talk. I don't know if we'll talk about it, so I'll bring it up now. But when her lease was due for renewal, her rent increased by $300. And previously, she had not wanted what she called the burden of home ownership. But once that lease increased, she reached out and she said, Lorraine, I need you to tell me everything you said before because I need to buy a house. I can't do this with them. But now she's in a bind because she can no longer afford what she once did. Mm-hmm. That same $200,000 she was working with now honestly amounts to about $150,000 compared to what it had been, and the lack of inventory. So she had to renew her lease. So you're seeing more and more of our apartment communities, in my opinion, take advantage of a situation. And I think many of them are doing it to supplement or regain what they may have lost during COVID, during a period of time when in many instances, because of moratoriums on housing evictions, tenants remained in place. And in many instances, there was a loss of money. Gentrification. Gentrification, of course, is real, and all elements of gentrification aren't bad. I have to say that in advance, because of course, when communities gentrify, what you find is generally a younger demographic comes in, but these are individuals that have higher incomes. They immediately revitalize the home, or it's been revitalized before they move in. And in certain parts of DeKalb County, particularly if you exit Candler Road and you turn left and go into the Tony Valley area, or any of those side streets, it's like a whole new world. You're seeing all of these beautiful cottage type home communities that are developing. And you're also seeing homes that have flipped. And in many instances, I have come to use as an example, when a home has been gentrified, the brick has been painted and it now has a colorful door. So as you drive down these streets, you will immediately notice the homes that have undergone gentrification. So even out here, sitting here in Stonecrest, we receive, calls concerning our home, I'd say multiple times a month, but certain residents in certain communities, and often these are our most vulnerable communities, are receiving daily phone calls. They are even receiving knocks on the door from buyers saying, I want to buy your home. I will purchase cash, 15 days to close, and I'll handle your relocation. And I found that the popular place to relocate the elderly community has proven to be Henry and Clayton County. So as these folks are selling their homes, so it was very important for me to have the town hall, because what I was finding is, if you're going to sell your home, you have every right. But you probably ought not sell it to the person who shows up and knocks on the door. You need to get a licensed real estate agent. You need to determine what fair market value is, because many of these folk that are elderly, they may have, in many instances in some of those communities, they've said, I only paid $40,000 for my home. So when this person shows up and they say, I'll give you $80,000 cash right now and handle your relocation, they take it. But they are then coming in and selling that home for $200,000 to $300,000 or more. Also, what you're finding is a lot of, what we often refer to as reverse mortgages, where they either have minimal amounts payable on the home, or they may own the home, and they give them a life estate. They say, you can stay for the entire duration of your life. Not only will I let you stay, just for you doing this deal, I'm going to give you $15,000 today. I'm then going to pay you on a monthly basis, $700 a month. And for a senior who's challenged, who's facing medical issues, this sounds like a perfect solution. But if you're already into your 70s or 80s and you do the math, over the life of this agreement that you have, if you receive $25,000 to $30,000, that's about as much as you'll get before you meet possibly your demise because of age. So that means this person may have paid you $60,000, if that, for a home that they're going to sell for $300,000 to $400,000. So we have to be careful, and we have to educate, and we also have to make sure our elderly population understands in DeKalb that we do have certain tax programs that will allow seniors who may see a rise in their taxes, however, their income has not changed, to go down to the tax commissioner's office and request that there is a tax abatement, that there's no rise in their taxes. Now, as long as they're able to meet the requirements and show that there's not a rise in income, they're able to prove their age, then they can qualify. But as soon as that property transfers, whether it's to your children or to a new homeowner, then that new homeowner is going to be responsible for the full tax valuation. It does not transfer. So this is a tool that we can use to help our seniors. You know, another major thing that I've seen that has occurred as a result of what we're experiencing in the housing market is what we call pad splits. I don't know how many of you, I try to look in here to see if you'll raise your hand if you understand what a pad split is. Okay, well, that said, let me explain it. A pad split is when Wall Street and or investors come in, LLCs, they purchase a home in a single family community. They go in, it may have 3 bedrooms or 3 on the main level, 2 on the bottom, 1 in the basement. That means they now have a 6-room home, 6-room boarding house, and they will sublet and develop a lease for each and every one of those bedrooms. And that has detrimental effects on community, as well as our ability to deliver services in DeKalb County. Because one of the major things that I hear when we talk about complaints from code enforcement and neighbors is the massive amount of trash that these homes generate during the course of the week. So oftentimes when they call about a pad split, that's one of the first things they say. It just is overrun with trash. There's just 15 trash bags outside, you know, on pickup days. And that's because you have 6 different families living in one house because they're trying to afford housing. But that is illegal in DeKalb County. So whether, I know in Stonecrest, Mr. Farrell, I work with him quite a bit, but in DeKalb County, of course, we have Mr. Hardy. If you're experiencing that or you see it in your community, let us know. We can send someone out. We will issue a citation in DeKalb. Thereafter, there's a 30-day right to cure. If the condition remains, we take them into court. There they face fines as well as imprisonment, depending upon the conditions. We talked about Wall Street and private investors. Also, what you find, the reason the average single family home buyer can't compete is these folks make all cash offers with quick closes. Average American cannot afford to pay for a house in all cash. So automatically, many Americans are operating from a point of disadvantage. I see Allison is with us, so I'm going to go into my email because that probably means she sent over the other presentation. And yes, she has. And thank you so much, Allison.
No problem.
This has even more slides than the first. So we're going to go back down and sort of catch up. And I included here a definition of what gentrification is. And I will share this so you all, you know, if you want to kind of mull over the content here, I'll get it to you. And, you know, one of the travesties of gentrification, now what you find is once median household incomes go up, because even here, and I you know, in Stonecrest, there's a huge desire for more restaurants and retail. But I say to you all, as it relates to economic development, I don't want to call it a slippery slope because it doesn't have to be. But if you speak with any franchise or a general retail company, they're only concerned with 2 things: to tell you whether or not they will locate in your community. This isn't rocket science. They want to know the median household income of the homes within a defined radius. And beyond the median household income, give me the number of rooftops. That formula will tell you whether or not you can receive a Whole Foods. I've heard even elected officials say some of the darndest things, and I'm sitting there thinking, either you're just Either you're ill-informed or you're just perpetuating a lie. You don't crowdfund supermarkets. Certain things that's not how it works. We can't put money together and wish something into existence. Businesses make rational decisions. So even in Stonecrest, I want to see even our council say even more to people. There has to be a balance here. We need homes to increase the critical mass and get the rooftops up. Because independent of that, you're not going to get some of the things you desire. So how we make those home looks, putting conditions on in terms of the facade, making sure you have renderings, whether these are properties that are all brick, stucco, hardy plank, or a combination of materials, creating the communities that you want and putting conditions on them so that it increases your property value and it's aesthetically who we are as a community. That's the key to economic development.
Yeah, can I ask a question? What is the impact? Yeah, what is the impact? You're talking about rooftops, and I understand that. What if you have nothing but apartments coming up and many, many apartments? That seems to me would be detrimental to the economic recovery or economic development that you want.
I won't say that it is because, and that's one thing I look at city of Decatur, and if you've been down there, it is booming.
Apartments everywhere, yeah.
Exactly. And these are apartments that in many instances are $1,800 to $2,300, $2,500 a month.
Yeah, mostly young people, yeah.
Absolutely. And they're out walking, and I don't care if you throw a rock in any direction, you will strike something. But this is the life that they want. Now, I'm not saying that everybody in the city of Stonecrest wants that life. But, in terms of creating a balance, because when you're dealing with a price point like what you find in Decatur, you're attracting a certain type of person. That would be the word for it. And there are, this newer generation, many of them, I'm not sure my daughter would even want this house, if that makes sense. They prefer a townhome or a condo. Absolutely. It's like we're a dying breed. We're a dying breed. And I just don't know any, Dennis, I don't know any other way to say it. We are. I'm even beginning every day to realize my age more and more. Because the things that I thought were desirable, you wanted that home, you wanted your piece of land. Mom, I'm good. I'm fine here. I don't want all that. They don't want any of it, it appears. So I won't say I won't say that apartments are bad. I won't say that. I think it's what you build, how it's built with amenities, including green space like walking parks, and you create a community that people can be proud of, and it will do well in your community. Yeah,
that has to be planned well. You need some type of plan. You just can't throw them all over the place, every place, with not a lot of planning. And like I say, put amenities in it and a lot of other things. So.
And Commissioner, I just want to add too, R100s, nobody wants those, and they're not even good for the builder. He can't make money, and that's what he's coming to this town for. All builders come to make money. You can't do it on an R100. They can get more on a R85, and it's not going to bring down the property values of the houses around it. And that's what I hear that all the time, and it's just not true.
And one thing that I'm finding, because even with the city of Stonecrest, it didn't come with a rule book. When the city was formed, everyone there was very much like me. I didn't walk into government with governmental experience. But over time, as those documents come and you're reading piles of stuff like I get, you begin to understand what's going on. So there's been many instances where along Covington Highway and other communities, people have initially come to me and said, Commissioner, we don't want it, don't want it, don't want it, I don't want that. And I said, well, tell me what you want. And then they're quiet. So I walk through what you believe to be desirable. What is the price point? What is your homework? And by the time we're done, I've had developers say, thank you for helping them tell us what they want, because we want to do business. Now, the price point has changed, but the market can withstand it. We're fine. So oftentimes we have not because we ask not. So I encourage everybody on here to do a better job of asking. Now, I also want to point out on, talk about this, because what you find is this is an equity issue. And this is in many ways a Black and white issue. There is a disproportionate wealth equity amongst homeowners in America. 74% of white Americans own their home. Hispanic Americans, 49%, and African Americans, Black, 45%. Now, technically, 80% of the average American's wealth, net wealth, is directly linked to their home ownership. So if we have a situation where you do not own a home, you now have individuals who have absolutely no net worth, none. So we have to be very cognizant of that. September 2019, we broke ground or cut the ribbon at Hope Stonecrest. And we opened it over at the AEI incubator. And I pay for them to have space there. And let's see, I didn't put their slide in here. But as it relates to them, we have issued to date over $7 million in down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. If you're a first-time home buyer, I don't care what your age, because what we're finding is really sad with some of our seniors in DeKalb. They've been renting for 30 years. Now, all of a sudden, the homeowner wants to sell the home. And they feel vested and entitled to the right to stay. And technically, that's a moral issue. But from a business standpoint, the homeowner has every right to sell. So we've got to encourage home ownership. Send them to me. Let me get them through our program. Let us provide the down payment, because what you find in challenged communities, particularly Black and brown, the biggest obstacle is the money to pay the down payment. Now, to make this even clearer, in DeKalb County, we currently have 4,700 active vouchers out for housing. But we have 45,000 people currently on a waiting list. So when we see this, how do we solve it? How do you solve it? The reason I had that townhome is it's time for us to start talking. We need public-private partnerships, meaning DeKalb County, the county proper, we're rich in land. We have one of the largest land holdings, I'm told, of any municipality, any jurisdiction in Georgia, metro area. So we could potentially give you land if you will develop it. And we can amortize the cost of the land over a period of time. That's no problem for us because we already own it. We also can enlist our churches, oftentimes because churches are rich and generally have money from tithes and so forth. Many of them also own land. So they have the ability to act as developers, and there's special incentives. And also we need to partner with private developers and offer them different types of funding that the county has. And right here, I talk about some of those. We call these my tools in the toolbox. And it's time elected officials understand how to get this done. Because independent of us going out there having these conversations, we're not going to see a change. We're not going to see it. And I don't know what we're waiting for. I don't know what the miracle is going to be. But it's time, literally. There was a study done 4 years ago, and you might have seen the headlines in today's Decatur-ish, where we had a spat between commissioners. But it all came down to one of the major things that was of concern was over 4 years ago, the county proper was warned, you need to create a position for a housing specialist. Because your inventory on housing is so low, and this was before the crisis, that you all are going to have to take a strategic approach. A strategic approach often looks like tax abatements, custom incentives, putting people through the CDBG loan program so that they're getting low interest loans, going into or choosing areas that also like our opportunity and empowerment zones. All of these things is what we're going to have to do to solve this problem. And with that said, that kind of solves it all or explains the issue in a nutshell. And at this time, you know, I'll open the floor to anyone who has any questions that they would like answered, and hopefully it's within my wheelhouse. I'm happy to answer them. And either you can raise your hand or come off mute. But most importantly for me, I did this town hall because I wanted people to understand, I know what you're asking me, but I don't have the capacity to make the change you need. So for me, I'm being very strategic now. I believe since that town hall, I have at least 2 pastors who are actively pursuing setting a separate corporation, because with the CDBG funds, it does require that not nonprofit, but there's a separate entity that has to be established. And then we can work with them to fund the entity so that they can build housing. During the town hall, I did include Piney Grove with Reverend Dr. Flippin, because he has built 76 units called the Grove, and it's directly adjacent to the church. Beautiful housing community. And these are the type things that we need to see our churches do. Because if we're going to solve this problem, government is not designed, nor was it ever created to provide housing.
So I want to ask, what are your thoughts about what I see in the community is people's attitude or their lack of understanding about affordable housing. When we say, like, we approve affordable housing or workforce housing, they don't want it in their community, and they don't want to. It's really an education.
Not in my backyard.
Yeah.
And let me say this, and this is what's interesting. Affordable housing is determined by place. And let me explain. You know, of course, Brookhaven and Chamblee, right now, if you're even up to Doraville, if you're in Doraville, because I'm constantly looking at real estate, you would think, Edwina, that I'm an agent. But if you want a townhome up there, you better have at least 500,000. Mm-hmm. 550 if you want to go on the newer side. But in Doraville, affordable housing may be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $400,000. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you go to Brookhaven, affordable housing may be more like $450. Mm-hmm. And if you come out here, affordable housing is determined by looking at current property values and developing what is basically a median of sorts. Now, it's a difference between affordable housing and workforce housing, because that's more salary driven. And what you find is not everyone can afford affordable housing.
Right.
So again, this comes back to education, because I have noticed here in Stonecrest, there's always a lot of opposition.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I've even had developers come to me after being told no in Stonecrest, and we were able to work something out with the community, and the community is happy, and the community even got a piece of art out of them and made them create another park. You know, we work with them. And I remember once they said to me, they said to their attorney, they said, man, where was she when we were dealing with Stonecrest?
Right.
And I said, what happened? So he explained, and he said they didn't want to hear anything. He said there was no talking to him. No. And once he was done talking, I said, well, tell me what you know about Stonecrest. So I listened, and technically he didn't know nothing. He just knew it was some land. So I said, well, I am a resident of Stonecrest. Do you know it's second only in African-American wealth to Prince George's County, Maryland? I sat there and I gave him all the rundown. And when I was done, I said, you know, if you went back out there, because I'm at the retirement age, I would love to have a multi-level duplex. I would love to have a rooftop pool or outdoor kitchen option. Give me the option of I'm tired of, I don't like my feet cold, heated floors in the bathroom. You could probably get out of me about $500,000, $600,000 on a duplex, because I want to live like the folk in Dunwoody do.
Yeah.
But we don't get it out here. So I explained that to him. And this man looked at me and said, he told his attorney, who was Michelle Battle, he said, as soon as we're done with this major development, he said, if the land is still available, I want you to put another option and I want you to go back to the table. And I want you to present something in line with what the commissioner has said.
Mm-hmm.
If they learn, and I say they, but if people learn to ask, folk will give you what you want. Sometimes you have to tell people who you are.
Right. Right.
No is not always the necessary answer. So yeah, I was very clear. I want 3 levels. I want a rooftop option. I would love to have me an outdoor kitchen up there on top. I'd love it to be in a gated community. And I named off about 3 different communities to him that I envision, most from right there off La Vista Road and such, with the pocket parks and all that. And he was like, absolutely, yes, so-and-so built that one. He knew everything I talked about. So he said it would be easy. So you're looking more like a St. James type property off Lenox. I said, absolutely. We want that in Stonecrest.
Right.
I
But
think
no
one of
one
the
has
things
said
that struck me at your town hall was that, you know, the lack of affordable housing, you know, has that impact. You talked about wealth inequity, and that's something we've talked about, especially Commissioner Forrest Elliott. The fact that you don't have a financial legacy that you can pass on if you're spending all your money on housing, and or can't afford a house. You don't have anything to pass on. And also the impact that it has, the potential impact it has on increasing the homeless population.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. And I have to say to you, I don't know how we do it, because since we opened our warming shelters, we are housing now. We've had 97 people that are homeless go into what we call housing, but in many instances, we're putting them in hotels. And, you know, some of you may have been aware that during the height of the pandemic, DeKalb County was literally renting one of the hotels in the city of Stonecrest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we resorted to housing people to keep them off the street in the middle of a pandemic. And, you know, we still get calls from folks who say, there's a person over by I can tell you where they are. I even have pictures of some of them in my phone, because I'll take the picture and I'll send it over there to Miss Melvia Richards. And I'll say, Melvia, you need to come get him. He's over here. This is him. Or I'll describe him and she'll send me his picture. She has her own database. And she'll say, that's John. She said, well, the commissioner, we can't get him. He won't come. And we work with one community, and Leah, remember, we went over there, we walked through there, Miss Job, Yvonne Job's community. And they said, well, you know, his mother died. The house is old now. He's not supposed to be in it. So he lives out back of it. And we finally was able to get him on one of the coldest nights to go with our folk, because we send the whole crisis unit. As soon as we got him bathed, shaved, and he got a couple nights rest, we're over there collecting clothes to go surprise him at the shelter. We show up, surprise on you, he's gone. So it's not that we don't try to help them, but see, in his case, you're dealing with substance and drug abuse issues. And then there's also a large population when you're dealing with that have mental issues.
Yeah.
So we do the best we can. When it comes to litter in our community, that's a totally different town hall. Because DeKalb proper, we spend $6 million on litter remediation, which is a fancy word for picking up trash behind people that don't appreciate community.
Right.
So with that being said, you know, I had a lot of data here and I didn't go into this on, you know, just know that I was shocked to see that the cost of used cars has increased 26%. And right now the consumer price index is up 6.5%. So for anything you buy, it has increased by 6% as a general rule.
Right.
So I don't know when this is going to end, but I do encourage all of you to definitely be fully aware that if we're going to solve this, I don't care if you're in Stonecrest, Buckhead, Decatur, it's going to take us working with individuals to get out of this situation with housing.
Well, I just want to say that I've heard you talk about this on a few occasions now. And I wish that somehow or another you talking about this, because you can just feel it from your heart that you're very sincere about this issue, that we could get it out to these communities and let them see people need housing, and don't stop the builders. Make them do what you want them to do at the price point you want, but let them come. We need it. So I just thank you for coming here today. I know I'm probably out of place, but I just want to say thank you for sharing your heart today about housing.
Well, I you know, this is, I said the Lord has a sense of humor, because I never expected to be doing this, but there's just some things that I'm not going to do. I'm just not going to be silent when I see an issue and we as government aren't having the conversation to solve the problem.
Right.
Because either you're a part of the solution or you're a part of the problem. So
exactly.
I'm available anytime. Yes.
Commissioner, I have dealt with workforce housing for almost 30 years. And I've not said anything, and I'm not, all I want to say is I want to compliment you for taking this on, because housing is critical in all aspects within our country and within our community. So I want to thank you.
And I thank you. And let me say this to you, Tom. If you have a desire, or if you know individuals we can partner with, I'm literally walking people up to the walls of Jericho now, because that's what it's going to take. And we've got to get the mentality of our elected officials right to understand that this is something that's needed, and that these folks are partners, not adversaries. So
that's right.
Reach out.
It is so broad, and it's such a solution. There are solutions there, but if you can just imagine what's happening out in San Francisco, out in Los Angeles, out in these communities where the average median income is probably $100,000. People who make $100,000 a year can't afford a home. They become homeless. So, I mean, the problem is not just, poor people, if you want to use
right.
the problem is pervasive throughout this nation. And housing, the form of housing is, everybody wants a home, but, someday we're not going to have enough land for everybody to have a home. And, there's got to be different housing. Now, if you go to, like I always, when you fly into New York and you look out on both sides of the windows and you say, oh my gosh, how can anybody live like that? And we don't need that to happen. I mean, the Atlanta Housing Authority tore down everything they had, and now they're rebuilding it using private public partnerships, and they're doing an excellent job with that. They also have access to HUD home flex funds that nobody else in the state does, but still there's an awful lot of development that's going on. And the new mayor of Atlanta has started to put their foot down even harder on the Atlanta Housing Authority to get something done. And gentrification is a big issue in Atlanta, particularly if you start at the old stadium and start going south. It's really affecting all that area that's in there.
Well,
So-
I really get it. And even I have, because I just trouble myself with knowledge, Tom. I've even seen some solutions that are taking place in Tokyo and Japan where people are selling air rights and building up. I'd love to take you to a couple of them because it was the coolest thing. There's one over off of Claremont, very close to the governor's mansion, where a Pakistani gentleman who has, does a great deal of work in Dubai, has sold the air rights, and they have literally built a car wash on top of the service station. And they took me over there before it happened because I'm looking at ways now to revitalize parts of South DeKalb, because these old, some of our older businesses don't have the money to update facades. But if you sell your air right, it allows us to also do that. So we got to be creative, and I'm going to go because I'm supposed to speak at Green Hive, and I got a whole dog and pony show for them. But, may God bless each one of you. May he keep us all.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And just know that you all can call me anytime. I am not a politician. I'm an elected official. Politicians go to jail. Elected officials serve their term. And I will always err on the right side of whatever issue I face. And that's a promise from me, and it will be done from the best possible place. So thanks to all of you. And I'm going to depart now so that I'm not too late for that presentation.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate
Thank
you
you.
taking the time.
No problem. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, that was a good presentation. I think for me, the key is you got to have a plan. You just can't help to scale to do this. You have to look at the big picture and develop some type of plan. Every development is not something that you want in your plan. So, but she's 100% right. And for me, you got to have some type of master plan and then you implement that plan to cover all these needs, and not unless anybody can come in and they can do anything. So you do need a plan.
And I think that's why we need to be working closely with the city and the city planning
Absolutely.
department.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I want to say one thing. As I was traveling, I was in Stonecrest and I was leaving, and that new development that we just approved after, I guess, grinding our teeth and whatever may be, looks like they're throwing all their trash down the bottom of the hill.
Crap.
I don't know who to tattle to, but it looks awful.
I think we need to talk to our.
Code enforcement?
That's the word I was looking for. All right. Well, our next order of business is to review and approve the minutes from January 12th, 2022. I sent those out to everybody. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. When I call your name, please signify your approval by saying aye and disapproval by saying no. Vice Chairman and Treasurer Edwina Clanton,
Aye.
Secretary Marie Colson. You're on mute, Marie.
Aye.
Commissioner Forrest Elliott,
Aye.
Commissioner Dennis Day,
Aye.
and the chairman says aye. So that passes unanimously. I did not receive any public comments, so we'll go on to reports and presentations. Edwina, do you have a treasurer's report?
Yes, sir, I do. Gia finally got through the audit and reconciliation of the books. And she sent over what we have that really belongs to us that we know, $62,597.05. The city funds are 150,000. They're there, but they're, they have to approve those.
They're in limbo.
Right.
So Dennis, you wanted to see the whole reconciliation. I think I sent that report. It has everything from the day one.
Yeah. What I really would like to see is more of accounting type reports. This is good. This gives you a feel for what's going on, but it really doesn't. It's not something that a business will use to run a business by. You need a balance sheet and an income statement and some of the accounting type reports. This is just gives me a list of, and you can't even tell what some of the transactions are for. Good start, but this is not what you can run a business by, or even housing authority, I don't think.
Yeah,
So-
I hate to say it, but if we had control of that, we could.
Yeah. In fact, if you remember, we voted to get a QuickBooks. That's what will run our accounting system. As soon as we can open up an account, we plan to put everything in action, but right now we're not able to do that right now.
All right, as far as insurance goes, I needed that piece of information to be able to get a quote, and we just got that today, so I haven't had a chance to submit that yet. And I think, I don't want to speak for you, Tom, but I think that that's the information you needed for us to do our 2021 filing as well. Is that
That's
correct?
right. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because somehow I turned my screen off and I don't know how to turn it back on. But I'm gonna work on it.
Well, we can see you.
Well, we see you.
Okay, well then that's okay. I'll have to be real careful about what I do.
And so that brings us to the status of the joint meeting between the Stonecrest City Council and the Stonecrest Housing Authority. I did talk to George a couple of times. He's texted me. He's working on it. He needs to talk to each of the council people separately, and he's started that process, but haven't heard anything more. So I'm still waiting to get a status on that. And I think before our next meeting, I'll give him another call and see where we stand. But he had, last time I talked to him, he thought that we could do something this month. So I'm hoping that that's the case. And finally, the sort of the theme for our meeting today is education, being educated. And one of the things that I, researched was looking for any kind of help we could get in terms of learning about what housing authorities do, seeing as we're relatively new. For those of you who've been here from day one, we've had some great training from Attorney Curry, and I know we'll be doing more of that. But I was also looking at other types of training. One of the things that I came across was this book called the Handbook for Commissioners. It's put out by the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials, NAHRO. It's about 153 pages. And I'd say that overall it appears to be a good reference. It gives a sensible overview of what a commissioner's responsibilities are, and it talks about some potential resources. It talks a lot about the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And while we're not doing any kind of federal, we don't have any kind of federal contracts, it might be something that we look at in the future. And so it's a good reference in terms of what HUD does and the kinds of programs that they offer. I think when most people think about HUD, they think about Section 8, and that's just one of many programs that HUD has. So the book also assumes that a housing authority has an administrative staff and an executive director, and devotes a chapter to the relationship between the commissioners and the executive director. We don't have that yet, but hopefully that's something that we will grow into. And other chapters address how to conduct effective board meetings, winning government and community support, becoming an affordable housing advocate, and communicating effectively with residents. There's also a chapter on ensuring ethical conduct. So I think all of those are really good, good common sense kinds of things that it wouldn't hurt us to review. So I'm going to recommend that we purchase a copy of this book for each of the commissioners. The cost is about, with shipping, it comes out to $40.69 per book. I'd like to discuss that today. We don't need to vote on it. Maybe we'll vote on it at a future meeting, but I just want to know what the rest of you think about that.
Yeah, I would think that's for that price. I don't see anything as something we probably should do, and probably order several extra books as new people come on. People go off, they can get their own book.
Very good.
I agree.
Okay. All right. Well, what I'll do is I'll make that the new business at our next meeting, and we can vote on it there.
What about the membership of $100? It's a $100 membership. I think that now.
I'm sorry, $100 membership to what?
I went online and I looked at it. I've been looking at places and to get information and training, and that's a good one. I think it's $100 for a couple of people.
Yeah, that National Association of National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials. They do training. They have training courses specifically for commissioners. And if you're a member of the organization, then you get a discount. I think what I'll do is I'll send out a link to their website. Maybe everybody can take a look at that. And again, that might be something we bring up at our next meeting and consider joining. I've tried to find other things, and it's really been difficult. The Department of Community Affairs here in the state, they don't appear. I can't find any training. Have you found anything, Marie? I have not been able to.
There's a Georgia Association of the Public Housing Authorities in the state. It's a nonprofit, and I would see, and they have a meeting once a year. I think it's over, maybe at Jekyll, to which they have training sessions.
Oh, great.
Carl Vince.
Something else. Is that a paid? Do you pay to be a member of that as well?
You pay to be a member to it. Let's see here. It's the. Well, let's talk about it. I'm looking for it myself.
Carl Vinson of University.
Yeah, Carl Vinton, but I don't know if they're the ones that host this thing, but there's a. Let's see. There's the Georgia
They had
Housing
new like.
I was hoping that we could find other housing authorities in the area, like Lithonia's Housing Authority. They've actually done some work, and other ones around here. But I'm not sure their meetings are public, or I've not ran across one that we could watch. Or follow them, because for me, I like seeing people in action, and I learn a lot from them as well.
Well, and I can always invite them to talk, at least address, talk about the things how they work and the things that they come across and come against.
Some mistakes they make, and And yeah, I would love to watch some of their meetings to see what actually goes on. And, so I'm going to look for that.
Yeah,
'Cause I know they're
Yeah,
meeting.
early on, we talked about partnering with Covington. I don't think we ever did anything about that. We talked about they were a comparable size of what we thought we'd be, and we would try to enter to some, at least introduce ourselves to that group and then work with them and see how they get things done, just to get us started. I don't think we ever
they're
followed through
definitely
on
on
that.
the list. I brought in the Cab Housing Authority first, and at this meeting, I brought in Commissioner Cochran Johnson, and that they're definitely on the list to approach and see if they'd be willing to get together with us.
Yeah, we said them because they're of the size. The cab is much bigger than what we are.
Right, but the Cab is so experienced and has, so many resources, and I felt that they could give us some recommendations and things as
Yeah, I agree.
well. All right, our next order, any comments, any other comments before I go on to the next order of business? Hearing none, we have under old business is the renewal of the contract for the Housing Authority attorney. I did send a copy of that. I had a senior moment and totally forgot that we'd entered into that agreement back in 2019. We had reinforced it or reestablished it, or whatever the legal term is, at our first meeting last year. Hopefully everybody got a copy of that. Is there any discussion?
This is going to be an annual renewal. We're going to do it on an annual basis.
So you can fire me anytime you want to. And there's, I think it says,
Yeah.
I think we should reiterate it every year and decide whether we want to fire Tom or not.
Yeah, that was the point. It says legally, though, we want to do it on an annual basis. That's all.
Yeah, there's nothing that I didn't see anything that commits it to a particular term. It just gives everybody an out if they want one. Well, do I hear a motion to approve the renewal?
Motion to approve the renewal for our attorney.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, when I call your name, please signify your approval by saying aye and your disapproval by saying no. Vice Chairman and Treasurer Edwina Clanton.
Aye.
Secretary Marie Colson.
Aye.
Commissioner Dennis Day.
Aye.
And Chairman says aye. It passes unanimously. So under new
Did you
business.
call Forrest's name?
I'm sorry?
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure.
I called you, didn't I, Forrest?
no.
Oh, sorry. Commissioner Elliott. All right, so the only old business was, only new business I had was a discussion about training. I think we've actually done some of that already. Does anybody have anything else that they want to bring up as it relates to training? I'll work with Tom, and Tom had developed a book that we gave to all the commissioners back in 2019. So we need to get copies of that to anybody who doesn't have one, and maybe Tom could
Let me go through it and see if I can, I may need to update it.
Okay.
There may be some better articles in there than what I had.
Okay.
And do you have that in digital format, or were we given the physical?
What's that mean? Yeah, I can. No, I can put it in. I can put it in I mean, if you wanted to have a share file, or I can put it in a zip drive where you can punch on the different ones, maybe that's what you.
Yeah,
That's probably the
a
easiest thing to
share
do.
file would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually took your old book and scanned it in so that I would have it electronically.
Well, that's good. That'll, that'll
So,
save notebooks.
right,
Yeah,
right.
we don't want to cut down any trees.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, good. So, because we've got a number of commissioners who weren't around then
Right.
when we had that training,
Okay.
and I think especially I
Marie,
think an overview on how the bond process works.
Yeah, I don't think we got to that. But we
Yeah, I don't recall them.
I have your handwritten drawings and your notes from that discussion way back when.
Yeah, that was the discussion when we were doing that particular deal. I think it was it Blue Atlantic or one of those, and it was they were really using the bonds to be able to qualify for the 4% tax credits, because the bonds end up getting paid off. They're collateralized by cash, and then they get paid off at the end of construction. So,
Yeah, that was for Stone Point, I believe.
okay.
Over
so
there on
that's a
Covington Highway.
project, that's a project down on Covington Highway that they're completed. They just had the ribbon cutting
Did they?
for.
I wish they'd invited us to it. I would
Yeah,
have
I
liked
do
that.
too.
It
So,
looked really, from the
go ahead.
outside, it looked really nice.
yeah, I have a couple of my tenants, I applied for them a place there and they were able to get in. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah,
Um,
that was senior apartments.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So can I ask the status, or do we know where the one is behind the Jeep? Is that gonna happen or do we not? No.
Chris, I can't remember his last name,
Eisenheimer, something like that.
Eisen something. He did call me like a month ago, and things seem to still be on track, but I haven't heard anything since.
Okay.
Probably 2 months ago.
Yeah, it's a really nice development. I'm hoping we get it,
Yeah,
but oh well.
that's the let's see, that's the Brad Parkway Apartments. They're
Yes.
just calling it the Parkway Apartments, I believe.
Right, with the gated community and the dog park.
Yeah, right there, right across from Walmart, and yeah, that would be a great place for that particular development.
Well, what in this, as we do more of this right now, we're kind of trying to figure out what the city is, what their intentions are, which makes this meeting and all that important, because we don't want to go through what we went through with the one with the DeKalb housing, where we did all the work and they took the fee.
Right. This is just me talking, but I know the mayor had allocated or had the city council budget $150,000 for marketing and legal. I would have preferred that kind of money go to some kind of an administrative help, maybe somebody we could contract for grant writing, or somebody to administer, some of those programs that we talked about. I think personally, marketing, we definitely, it would be great if we had a website, but we don't need $100,000 to build that website. It'd be great if we could tag that money for something that would be more productive, my opinion, in terms
I
of.
would agree, and I think if you also sat there, and if they're willing to do that, take a third of it and be able to put it in a fund just to help people that have needs, have housing needs. We need to start building that up.
Yeah,
Right.
what came to my mind was, we just had this big apartment fire. It'd be great if we had some emergency funds that we could have provided, for temporary housing or something of that sort.
I mean, even if you, put them in the, one of the motels or hotels.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's another reason we would need an administrator too, that if we had funds to get an administrator, and then we could do programs like that.
Right.
Right.
That's not something we can do. I mean, that's clearly, we're volunteers and that's really not the job of the commissioner. That's the job of somebody who's experienced and dedicated in that area.
Right, and we pay them to do it, absolutely, yeah.
And that's why I think it's so important that we do meet with the city. And I just want to, we're their partner. We want to be their partner, and we want to help our citizens. We want to not leave them to the DeKalb County so much. These are our citizens, and I think we could be a good partner with them. I really do.
I do too. I don't think we have any need for an executive session. Any commissioners have anything that they want to bring up? Hearing none, I do want to make a public service announcement. And we've had some bad publicity in the city. And if you go on social media, social media is just there to reiterate the negative. I mean, it's negative, it's toxic. And I think to get there's a lot of good stuff happening in this city. And I think if you really want to have a balanced view of what's happening in Stonecrest, you need to subscribe to two newsletters. One of them is the one from On Common Ground, and you can, I think you can subscribe at ocgnews.com. And they have a newsletter, and they are the official legal outlet for the city. So you're going to see all the legal notices there. You're going to see the agendas for the meetings. And when they report stuff, they do it in a very unbiased way. So to see the good and the bad, to get a balanced view of Stonecrest, that's one of the places you should go. The other place is Stonecrest Weekly, stonecrestweekly.com. They have a newsletter, they have a podcast, and this is kind of unique. You've got two Stonecrest citizens who are going to the trouble of creating this podcast and this newsletter. They're young, they're funny, they're creative, and they come from a positive perspective. I mean, they don't ignore the negative, but they come from a positive perspective. On their podcast, they've interviewed important people in Stonecrest. During the last election, they interviewed each and every one of the candidates so that citizens could get a sense of what each of those candidates stood for. And that's another place where you're going to get the good news along with the bad, and mostly the good news. Well, a lot of the good news. They also do a really creative, they do these audio plays that are Bible-based and are really very creative and entertaining. So stonecrestweekly.com, that's the other place that I would recommend any citizen who really wants to have a balanced understanding of what goes on in Stonecrest to go to those two places. So that's my public service announcement for what it's worth.
It was ocgnews.com.
ocgnews.com.
Okay.
And stonecrestweekly.com.
Okay.
Well, since if nobody has anything else, I am going to call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Be safe.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye. Good meeting.
Bye-bye.
See how do I get out of here?